Well, hello, everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our CentreCourt MBA Festival. We have a great panel of alums, MBA alums, people who've been through the experience. They've run the gauntlet that you may be currently running yourself. They're probably very glad that the application process is not only over, but maybe even the MBA experience is over and they're now well into their careers. And what I love about this panel, I really love it, is where they are right now. Kristen Smith is in London, one of my favorite cities in the world, and one where I have spent a good amount of time, including 4 years living there. Luca is in Rome, and despite my last name, I'm really Italian-American. My mother's maiden name was Cesario. And I grew up in an Italian household with Italian immigrants. And let me just tell you, every Sunday is pasta supper. Every Friday is homemade pizza at this house.
It's good for you. So,
and Narmeen is actually in Berlin, Germany. Another fantastic, dynamic, vibrant European city and capital. So we're going to have a really good time. And then we have April Davis, who's joining us. And I don't
Hi, everyone.
There you are, but we can't see you, April.
I know, I can't figure out what's going on. It says that my video is occupied by another app, and I don't have another app, so I don't know what's going on. I'm working on it.
So now, April, where are you calling in from?
From Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. Beautiful place. I bet you the weather's a lot better right now than it was last week.
Yes, it's beautiful here this week.
Okay, let me just, I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself, but before I even do that, I'm just going to say where you're all from. So Kristen Smith is from EDHEC, and not from, but meaning she got her MBA there. Luca got his MBA at ESIC in Madrid.
yes.
Lovely, beautiful city as well. And then we have Narmeen, who got her MBA from the Rotterdam School of Management. April got her MBA from Indiana University, Kelley. So, Kristen, let's start with you. Give us a little bit of background on yourself, what you're doing now, when you graduated.
Yeah, so currently I'm the head of sales at Flock Cover. We're a digital MGA that specializes primarily in connected insurance, most notably in the drone space. And now we've just launched into motor fleet insurance as well. I finished my MBA in 2019 down in Nice and made my way up to London right after that. Sadly haven't been able to make the most out of London with the COVID pandemic, but I'm enjoying my time kind of working in the insurance sector and specifically the insurtech and startup world in London. It's a really exciting place to be, especially in contrast to what I did before the MBA, which was more traditional insurance with people like Zurich and traditional insurance brokerages over in the US.
Now, you don't have an English accent.
No, I'm American, relocated.
Where are you originally from?
I'm from Michigan, from Traverse City, Michigan. Map behind me.
There you go. How about that? Now, you uttered an acronym that I was unfamiliar with. MGA, what's that?
A managing general agent. It's when a company has the ability to price and bind insurance policies on behalf of an insurance carrier.
Great, thank you. And Luca. Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Luca, tell us about yourself.
Yes, I am a lawyer. I have a legal background because I'm a lawyer in Italy and lawyer in Spain because I have a degree in Bologna University and the Urbino University in Italy, then in Spain.
And I see all those law books behind you.
Yes, because I like this. And yes, I'm a lawyer, but in the same time, I was very interested in international business. So now I am a board member of the Permanent Observatory on Ecclesiastical Assets. And I am a CEO of Green Energy Plus, that is a company part of Rinascimento Group here in Italy. We work for facilitating the energy conversion efficiency of the ecclesiastical real estate buildings according to Laudato Si, that is the encyclical of Pope Francis.
Oh, wow.
So, and I got 3 master degrees, one in 3 different countries, one in Italy about environmental law, and ESIC, as you know, because ESIC is a terrific business school. We have the opportunity to study in China and in Spain, in Madrid, in 2 different and amazing and very funny cities, Madrid and Shanghai. So double degree, international MBA in ESIC, and the title in China, in Shanghai too. So
you're overeducated. You should be a professor.
It could be an example of an overeducated people. No, I don't know.
And Narmeen, tell us your story.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm originally from Canada, and I have an engineering background, and I was working in multiple different industries while I was over there. So environmental engineering, a little bit of oil and gas, a little bit of nonprofit. And right before my MBA, I was working in a municipality as a municipal engineer. And shortly after, I realized I wanted to be in Europe, at least for part of my career. And that's when I took the plunge and did my MBA in Rotterdam and graduated almost exactly a year ago. And last summer, I relocated to Berlin to work for Amazon Robotics, where we work with the warehouses and the robotics that are in the warehouses to try and make people's lives a little bit easier, at least so that they're not having to work or walk rather hundreds and thousands of kilometers within a week. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Instead, they tell robots to do that, right?
Exactly.
Great. So in April, you're at Vanguard, right?
I am, yes, I'm at Vanguard in Charlotte, North Carolina. I graduated from the Kelley School in 2016, and I'm a senior project manager in the Global Resource Strategy and Controls Department here.
Terrific. Now tell me why you went to get an MBA in the first place, and then why you chose the school that you did. April?
Sure. So I practiced law for 10 years. I'm not the only lawyer on this call. Yes, a lot of recovering lawyers here. Being a lawyer never really was the right fit for me, but it took me a while to figure out what was. And I, did that by doing my due diligence and talking to friends and deciding that I could use my legal skills in the business world, which I have. And I chose Kelley for a number of reasons. When I interviewed there, it just felt like the right place. It felt like home, and it felt like where I could fit in. I'm an unusual MBA student. I am married to my husband, also a Kelley graduate. We went together, and we had a toddler, and I was pregnant at the time. Yeah, and so we really looked at kind of the whole package, like what would it cost to go to business school? What would the cost of living be? What would daycare cost? So we were, and also, how would our choice of business school impact our earning potential? So we looked at it very holistically, which we had not done for law school. So we made a more informed decision this time.
Wow. Was your husband a lawyer as well or not?
Yes, we met in law school.
Well, so you're 2 lawyers who abandoned the legal careers.
We did.
The business.
There are many of us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And now, April, how many years did you practice law?
So I practiced law for 7 years total, and then I worked in at my law school alma mater for 3 years. So,
wow.
Yes. So I was an older than average student too. So non-traditional in many ways.
Yeah. Although you look like you're 20 something anyway, but.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm going to have to do these calls more often.
I know there are a lot of people like you who go and get a law degree. And in fact, there are many, MBA applicants who at one point may have considered law as a possibility. What was it about the profession that kind of turned you off and made you make a detour?
I think it's different for a lot of lawyers. Practice in different ways, right? But I practiced in large law firms. I did not like billable hours. You really do write your time down in 6-minute increments. There's a lot of pressure there. The supply and demand of law is difficult. At least when we were practicing, there were many more lawyers than there were clients and jobs. And so a lot of pressure from that perspective. I traveled a lot. And I was getting to a point in my life where I felt that I wanted to have a family. I think a lot of lawyers are just really career driven, and not to say that I'm not, but I think law can be a kind of a single-minded profession. That's not a bad thing for somebody who wants that, but I wanted kind of a more holistic work-life balance approach to life. And I found that I do use both of my degrees at Vanguard in my current role.
Yeah, I'm sure. And just out of curiosity, did you meet your husband in law school?
Yes, yeah, we're law school sweethearts, if that's a thing. So
law school sweethearts and then married in business school. Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That was our last educational journey together. I'm confident we're done. It was school, not the marriage, but with school.
PhDs, who knows? Now, one thing that immediately, impresses me is the fact that you're from Michigan.
Well, that is impressive.
No, Kristen, and the fact that Kristen decided to go for an MBA in France. So give me that story and why you chose to go to Europe for your MBA.
Yeah, so after graduating from my undergrad program at Michigan State, I moved to Boston, and I spent about 10, 11 years in Boston and kind of going between Boston and New York for work. Similarly, I was working with a really great international group in the Zurich office in New York City. And I really wanted to kind of continue to globalize my career, if you will. And I tried for a while to apply to jobs in Europe from the US and just had no luck whatsoever. So at a certain point in time, I started to look at other ways that I might be able to expand my experience, and had always been interested in an MBA. So I kind of put the two blocks together and started looking at MBA programs in Europe. And when I found EDHEC, it kind of ticked all my boxes. I also was an older MBA student looking for a little bit of an older average age of the student class. Also looking at the ROI of the program, the cost of living, and also what the earning potential was afterwards. And then lastly, looking at the diversification of the cohort. So where's everybody from and what kind of experiences are they bringing to the table? Because I wanted to learn from my classmates as much as from the classwork. So I kind of found all of that in EDHEC, and bonus, it was in Nice on the Côte d'Azur. So it was a nice change from the Boston winters and the Michigan winters.
Yeah, it was a wonderful change. Mm-hmm. Lots of good wine and cheese, I'm sure you consumed there.
Yeah, I'm lactose intolerant, but definitely on the wine.
And now, Luca, obviously you were in law before. What made you choose to go and get your MBA and then to get it in Madrid?
Honestly, I realized that my background, my preparation was not enough, because sometimes I couldn't quite understand what colleagues told during business meetings that I attended. So I needed a tool to help me, especially about finance and accounting, because a legal background has its own limit, so it's natural. And then I start a little journey in my life to travel among some business schools and visited some campus. And finally, I finished my travel in Madrid, in ESIC, where I breathe the environment, the right environment that I was looking for, because really I felt a community sense. I don't know if you know, but our classroom are extremely narrow, because we are 25 or at least 30, and or 25 or 30, so maximum 30. So you can imagine that we are not so much, and it's highly interactive program. And I was looking for something extremely international and global. So half of the time, more or less 60% in Madrid, and the other part, 40% in Shanghai. The experience was amazing, and the two different continents, cross-cultural challenges among us, because 25 people from 14 different countries. Mm-hmm. So very challenging, and it was the right choice at the time. So.
Yeah, and that's a very unusual situation to spend nearly half your time in two different countries. and two countries that are so dramatically different from each other. I know that the school also has a program in Miami, so that
Yes.
people can go to Madrid for the first part, and Miami the second part if they didn't want to go to Shanghai for the
Yes.
international MBA. Yeah.
Yes, because ESIC will start another part of international MBA in Miami. So very global experience, because we are talking about something that starts in a continent and finish in another continent. And it's now with the travel restrictions, it's not so easy, you can imagine. But I finished it in 2019, so I was so lucky. But I know that now they will admit new students starting now, so for September. So.
Yeah, exactly. Narmeen, how about you?
So my story is a little bit of blend of Kristen and April's. I started in engineering and I realized really quickly that I'm not a technical person. I didn't enjoy the engineering, let's say. And I kind of gravitated more towards the management side of work. So more the project management pretty early on, or more of the interdisciplinary work. And I started traveling because I was working remotely. I had a really interesting shift in work. So I could take several weeks off at a time. And I was in Europe, it turns out, a lot of those times. And I really fell in love with Europe, particularly the Netherlands and Germany, which is the two countries I've been in the last 2 years. And I've been looking for jobs in those two countries as a mean of, okay, like let's transition my career to Europe since I want to try living there. But not having a network was a huge challenge for me because they seem to gravitate towards people they know, or if you have an education that's local, they prefer that. And also in terms of trying to move away from the technical work, it was a big challenge because if they see the engineering degree, they're like, okay, you're an engineer, so let's give you a technical role. So going through both of the things that I really wanted, for me, it was almost like a no-brainer. The MBA would be that bridge that would gap between what I have and what I want, and including changing the location. So I actively started looking for business schools in Europe, and RSM stood out to me quite a bit because it's in the country that I absolutely love. It's the Netherlands, even though the winter's a little bit gray, but the people make up for it. And also because having spoken with a lot of different schools, I felt like a person. It really resonated with what they really stood for, and the different teams, the different students. Spoke with a lot of alumni, and I knew that as I was going through the process between starting and the end, that was really the right school for me. So it all kind of came together, and definitely happy with the choice at the end of the day.
That's great. I want to ask each of you to transport yourself back to the time when you were actually in application mode, and maybe tell people in our audience who are exactly there right now, one thing you wish you knew at the time that you came to learn later on, either through the MBA program or after it. Why don't we stay with you, Noreen?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that I took away actually started at the very start of the MBA program is building a support network with your cohort. Because especially with the one-year program, there's a lot that's happening really quickly, and sometimes it will be extremely overwhelming. The academics, regardless of what school you go to, it is relatively standardized. You'll come up with a top-notch education, but to get you through from the start to the end, to be able to lean on the support system for both emotional and professional support, it was so critical, and it's something that I value even after the MBA. So that's something to really look forward to, I would say, if you're starting your MBA.
So that tells me, especially if you're going into a one-year program, start investing in the network even before you show up.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah, like call up the alumni, call up the current student. That's something I've done, and I'm still in touch with all of those people that I've reached out to. And even with the current classes, I've been communicating quite a bit, whether it's career advices or what have you, because at the end of the day, we're all colleagues. So start investing early on, whether it's the school of your choice or even other schools, because I've reached out to students in other universities, not RSM only. I'm still in touch with them too, and they're great peers and great wealth of knowledge.
Right. Now, Luca, what's the one thing you wish you knew when you were an applicant that you got to know later on?
Maybe I would have brought more espresso from Italy, more coffee. In fact, I didn't think to. I sleep so little in the most intense moments of the master program. So, because I learned that nothing is achieved without hard work, but really it was very intense program because really I didn't sleep so much. And because especially for me that I am a lawyer, you can imagine in front of so many numbers and the numbers of about finance and accounting and among with Chinese students that are who are extremely strong and good in math and in the scientific things. So it was difficult, real, but I learned a lot. I learned to challenge myself, and I knew better myself, really. It was a big, extremely big and important challenge for know better myself, my own limits, and very strong experience. So, yes.
Now, Luca, was it more challenging than law school? Because I would think law school is more challenging than business school.
Very different approach because they, as you know, in law school you have so many notions. You have to learn so many numbers, laws. It's a different approach. When you are in a business school, the approach and the method is very practical. So, so many business cases, the environment changes, and it's very different, very different.
Yes, right. Kristen, one thing you wish you knew before you went to business school.
Yeah, I'll take the kind of theme that Luca started talking about, which is kind of strengthening your weaknesses. I would say as a student that kind of took a bit of a break in between my undergraduate degree and my MBA, going back into study mode and doing the GMAT was a really good indicator of where my strengths and my weaknesses lied. And in that kind of vein, after I finished the GMAT, looking back, I wish I'd spent a little bit more time in between the final GMAT score and starting the MBA and doing a bit more prep work for the finance courses. I think I could have gotten a lot more out of it in the moment. So that's kind of like my biggest takeaway. The second piece is like really think about what your goals are after the MBA. Like if you want to leave the MBA and accomplish certain things, you have to start that journey, as Narmeen said, like before the MBA starts, whether it's building your network, whether it's kind of strengthening those areas that you want to put forward, kind of fine-tuning your pitch on who you are and what you're looking for. All of those things start before the MBA program begins.
Right. Yeah. April, how about you? Oh, you're on mute, I think. There you go.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm doing this from my phone because my camera didn't work on my computer, but I was in a fortunate position of this was like my do-over, right? I got a second chance. And so I kind of took what I had learned from my law school experience. I would just strongly suggest that people go with their gut in terms of culture, because one of the biggest takeaways you're going to have from your MBA experience for a lifetime are those classmates that you networked with and made friends with, and the greater alumni network. And I would say schools have really distinct cultures. Kelley's culture had me right away. And I continue to see that culture not only in my classmates, but in the entire alumni network. Like every school has a personality. And I think that that's a really important thing to consider when you're going to make an investment in an MBA.
Yeah. Now that's really good thing to take away from. And now, you mentioned earlier that you took a very pragmatic approach.
He did, yes.
With your husband.
Yes.
I wondered, after you crunched all the numbers and you thought about what the ROI might be, at this point in your life, was it worth the investment?
Yes. So for me, it was a number of things, right? Financially, it was worth the investment. There's no doubt about it. And I think my ROI is much higher because I went to Kelley and it was a more affordable school in a very affordable location. But I would have wanted to pay Manhattan prices for Kelley anyways. I'm like a Kelley lifer. But I also wanted a career transition, right? And a lot of people said to me, because I think I was 38 when I started business school, everyone said, like, you're nuts, you're way too old to switch careers. And I said, but I literally can't retire until I'm 67, right? Like, I can't even collect Social Security. That's 29 more years to work. And so, yeah, it absolutely was worth it financially and otherwise. I'm much happier and I'm doing something that I like. And I just think it's a better fit.
Great. And Kristen, you mentioned ROI earlier as well. Was it worth the investment?
Yeah, again, more than just the financial investment. At EDHEC, we had some really enriching experiences. On one of our trips, we actually went down to South Africa for a sustainability and business kind of track. And while we were there, I got to visit companies, and one in particular really stood out to me, Old Mutual. They really responded to the water crisis, the shortage of water in South Africa, and completely retrofitted their facilities, not only to benefit themselves and their employees, but also the town around them to be able to provide gray water and other solutions if things got really dire. And from that, I think, and from other experience as well at EDHEC, I think my view of the world was broadened quite a bit more than I could have ever expected. And then just the relationships I have with my classmates are priceless. So the people that are my best friends, my boyfriend that I met in the program, it's a priceless experience. I could never, even though the ROI was great, I could never put a price tag on what it's delivered to me today.
Terrific. Now, Luca, as a lawyer, you had to be making good money. Was it worth it for you?
Yes, but it's not only an investment, money investment, of course, but it's an investment for life. And my mindset changed a lot, and my way to think very different. And I realized that my success in the workplace would not only be measured by my individual skills, but by the ability to build effective relationship with the others first. So I learned so much from my classmates. I learned many things, and especially in an international class. So you can imagine the Chinese, American, Colombian, Italian, French, and every part of the world we enrich each other. So amazing experience. Yes, it's worth it.
That's true, because there are many intangible benefits that a lot of people, particularly applicants, tend to overlook when they just look at the starting salaries and bonuses of graduates, which is only a very little tiny snapshot in time of what the MBA will contribute to your career and your life. I'm assuming, Narmeen, that you also believe your investment was well worth it, yes?
Absolutely. So aside from the financial aspect, which I completely agree was worth it, I achieved a lot of my goals that I did want to achieve with my MBA already. Making a triple jump, leaving engineering, moving to Europe, working in a large tech company, exposure to sustainability, because that's something that I'm quite passionate about, also coming from RSM. But also being able to learn about myself in a way, like kind of like what Kristen was saying, like you go to different trips and you're exposed to so many unique things that I think it's really hard to put a price tag or even sometimes imagine what you would be thrown into without being in those situations. The people that I met, both alumni and classmates, some of my closest friends to date are my classmates. And I can't imagine, like going through all of that without them. So definitely worth the investment.
And you mentioned a term that I'm very familiar with, but maybe some of our audience isn't, the triple jump. Now, let me just explain that. That's when you transition from one geography to another, when you transition from one industry to another, and transition from one discipline to another, and you do it all at once. And that was in your case, right?
Yeah, that was absolutely in my case.
Now, I have to say that there are very few degrees that are available to people to allow them to do something like that. I mean, almost virtually none. This is really one of the unique aspects of an MBA and the mobility that it provides above and beyond the immediate boost in pay. So I want to ask my favorite question of students and graduates. If you had to say three things, there were three things that were hallmarks of your MBA experience that most resonated with you, that really meant a lot to you, what would the three things be? Let's stay with you. And then incidentally, I want you to do one other thing. I want you to pretend to be the dean of the day. And what is there one thing you would change about your MBA program? So let's go up to three hallmarks first, and then the one thing as dean you would change.
All right, the three hallmarks. Now, three things that really stood out was the MBAT. I'm not sure if others are familiar with that. That's the MBA tournament that's organized by HEC. It was basically a weekend or 5 days of sports activities, but also networking and bonding session that probably stood out like mad for me, just because you're taken out of your natural element of being in a classroom, and you really get to know your classmates for their strengths and weaknesses. You go through some of the more unique moments together, all while in the bus trying to prep and cram for an exam that's there 2 days after you come back to Rotterdam, while you're still meeting, international students from all over the world. So that was a definite hallmark moment for me.
Let me explain that for people. That's kind of like the MBA Olympics, right?
Exactly.
There are all kinds of competitions involving schools and students from all over the world at HEC Paris. Exactly. It's an incredible event. What did you compete in?
So I was actually the designated photographer. That was one of the things that I did. But I also played dodgeball. So I think I missed a little bit what you said. You kind of froze.
I think he was asking maybe your sport of choice from the Olympics.
Sure. All right. Yeah, so my sport of choice was dodgeball, because that's something that I kind of grew up playing a little bit. So it felt like I was back in high school. So it was turning back the dial on clock a little bit. But a lot of photography, that's kind of what I focused a lot on.
And so your other hallmark experiences were what?
The other hallmark experience was the trip. We had an international trip, and we all got to pick three, and we would be designated to one of those three trips. And it was to Costa Rica that I went to, and it was about the economics of Costa Rica and how they came up to be a very sustainable country. We went to different companies, different farms, and we interacted with a lot of the locals to really understand how Costa Rica was a thriving country and what are some of the challenges that came along with it. And it was very enlightening to kind of look at, sustainability at a different lens as well, and also getting the local insight, because sometimes, like, especially when you're reading out of a book or just kind of getting lectured, it feels a little bit removed, but doing it hands-on, it was really, really great. The third pinnacle, I would say, would be, was we had this one leadership course that was a really small course of maybe like 10 students, and you really got to dig into your leadership style. And it was very, like, you analyze your leadership style and you find your complementary, what really works for you, and how to build teams based on that. Because ultimately, for a lot of us, if we're doing an MBA, we do want to work in teams, build our own teams, have our own company, and how to do that successfully. And obviously it's not going to be, 100% every single time. But that being said, it was really helpful to have that insight and those tools to be able to do that for if and when we wanted to do that.
And now you're dean for the day. What would you change?
What I would change for the full-time MBA would be to have a little bit more of a case-based focus. For example, we had a lot of cases, but the part that I really miss is while we could still leverage and learn a lot from each other in the classes, I think we can do that a little bit more because everyone had such a unique thing to offer based on the variety of experiences. I wish I got to learn more of that from them and not just the theoretical material. Well, those are extremely helpful, but I think integrating those a bit better would have been more beneficial.
Right, great. Kristen, what were your 3 Hallmark experiences?
Well, my lawyer friends will really enjoy this one. We did a bit of a 3-part course in the MBA on international law and different business law. And one of the things we got to do was a mock trial, and it was great fun. As someone that thought maybe one day I might have been a lawyer, it was kind of a great opportunity not only to collaborate with my classmates in a really different way, to learn a new subject and also kind of get to play my day in court, and not on the wrong side of court, of course. And then another one of the pinnacle kind of highlights of the MBA was the tracks. So at EDHEC, we get to choose a focus area, and I chose the focus area of finance. So at the end of the MBA, we go into a dedicated track with courses really kind of diving into the details of finance. So we did many courses on debts and derivatives and really getting down into foreign exchange. And when I thought about doing my MBA, a big driver of me being interested in an MBA in general was I came from a political science background when I was younger and kind of worked my way up through marketing and sales. And so I never really had that formal business education. So it was great to get a real crash course in all things finance. Now I can kind of go head for head with our CFO and kind of work on all the CAC and lifetime value charts in a much more meaningful way. And then the last piece, I mentioned already the South Africa trip, but on that trip, we got to also visit a lot of different companies. I mentioned one already, but on one occasion, an alum from EDHEC actually had started up a business where they were servicing some of the small local grocery stores within the townships around Cape Town. And sitting with them and learning about their startup gave me a little bit of that, I guess, drive to go into the startup world after the MBA. So it was a great experience. Again, opened my eyes to what was out there and what people were doing post MBA, and really kind of pushed me to my next level. And then in terms of my dean for the day moment and what I would change, I think like if I had to think of one thing that I would change, I'd maybe make the track even longer, the finance track or the focus track. The general business courses were all so fantastic, so I would hate to draw time away from them. But when we started getting down into the details and working as a much smaller group in the track, you really kind of, I guess, you cooperated on different levels with the smaller group, and you also got so much deeper into topics that you never would have gotten into before. So,
really good point.
Yeah.
April, your 3 things.
So I would say kind of my first pinnacle experience was just being accepted by my classmates so strongly, and like their kindness and receptiveness towards me. I was a mom, married, toddler, pregnant, older, and I felt like just one of the club. And I had classmates who watched our daughter on break rooms when we had to take exams, and people volunteered to babysit. And it really was a family experience. My second Hallmark experience was finally taking a risk and deciding that I was interested in finance and I was going to pursue it, even though I was afraid that I couldn't do it. I'd had a very heavily like English lit law background. I hadn't had a math class in like 20 years, but I really liked finance. And I switched, I ended up double majoring in marketing and finance, but I came to Kelley to do marketing because that was the simple, easy choice for me, and realized I really enjoyed finance. So kind of adding that on. And then the career services staff at Kelley were really amazing for us. They're highly rated, but they had their hands cut, their work cut out for them. 2 people in the program at the same time, needing to land jobs in the same city. Me being unsure, can I make the finance leap? All of those things. They were really amazing, as well as just the rest of the staff and professors. I mean, I took my infant daughter to office hours, and we brought our daughter to 2 of our classes after she was newly born. So it really was a life-changing, but definitely non-traditional experience for us, and probably for the school too. And they were amazing.
That's remarkable. And so if you were ID, what change would you make?
So I don't know if this is logistically possible, but my suggestion would be at Kelley, you have to pick a career academy, and you do that in tandem with your coursework. And as somebody who started in one academy and wished I had started in another, not saying anything about CMA, I loved them, Consumer Marketing Academy, but I felt strongly early on I wanted to make the switch to finance, but you have to declare that pretty early on. So I don't know if there'd be a way to have like a 5 or 6 week gap between the start of the year and picking academies, but that would be my one small suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. Now, Luca, I know one of your 3 is the time you spent in Shanghai.
The time spent in Shanghai was amazing, really, because I want only to remember the visits and the trips to the companies in China, unique experiences like Alibaba. We were guests in Alibaba in Hangzhou, and at the same time, so many technological companies. Our group was extremely lucky. And in Madrid too, because John, you have to imagine the weekend enjoy of a theater in ESIC. We have a school of theater practically inside. When in that place, we can empower our creative thinking. For me, that I am Italian, the creative part is very important. And the third things probably that I miss so much was the very funny moments that we spent together with the professors, stay together in Madrid, especially because our group was small, 25, 23 people, and I was the class representative. I spent many hours together with the professor. So it's a highly engaging experience for staying together with the professor, unique, because 23, 25 people, and we eat together, we spend time with professors. So I miss this kind of experience.
Yes. Well, that's a very intimate experience for sure. Now, if you were the dean, what would you change about it?
John, great question. If small group, small class is like a family. You spend time in Madrid, in Shanghai. We spend much time together. The problem is that the cross-cultural conflicts and challenges are amazing, are very difficult sometimes to deal with it. And it's like a family. You can love so much your brother or your sister, but sometimes it's not so easy to manage this kind of relationships, especially if you are living in another place of the world and you have to work together. And so sometimes I missed some tools to manage this kind of conflicts, but I know at the same time that that's life. So we have to train to stay with other culture, other people, and that's life. So really, it's not a big.
That's very true. I mean, as long as anyone gets involved in an activity where a group is trying to achieve a goal, and they're not working in one organization, or maybe even they're working in an organization, you wonder, how does anything ever get accomplished? Because there are very different points of view. They have to be brought on board, they have to be respected and listened to.
Not easy.
And yet the course of action has to be chosen at the end of the day, and maybe everyone isn't on board. So that's always a tricky situation for sure. Now, I'm wondering, either today and every day, there are naysayers about the MBA degree. There are people who say, you don't need it. You can do anything you want. It costs too much money. It takes too much time. It's not a necessary degree to have to be successful in business. And you have people like Elon Musk, who's highly admired as, the entrepreneur of the day, saying things like this. And for some applicants, it may make them have some misgivings about even going through the process. What do you say to them, Kristen?
Oh gosh, that's a good one. I think I would say to them, as long as you have done your due diligence, you've really kind of researched, you've talked to students, you've talked to alumni, you've kind of searched within kind of your goals, your heart, your finances, and you know that it's the right decision, then kind of push past your doubts and go forward.
And I think for each of you, the answer is kind of obvious too, right? I mean, Kristen, you wouldn't be working in London if not for that MBA degree and the European experience you had in Nice. And Nermeen, same thing. You wouldn't be working in Berlin and having had the wonderful experience of going to school in the Netherlands. In April, you might still be a lawyer, slogging through paper. And so be it with your husband as well. And Luca, you'd probably still be a lawyer too, or doing legal work. So in each of your cases, the MBA was truly transformational. It really changed your career, it changed your trajectory, it changed your location, and lots of other aspects of your life. So for people out there who want to make career transitions, and let's face it, that's the majority of people who go and get a full-time MBA. This is an incredible vehicle from which to do it. There's no doubt about it. Talk a little bit about your classmates. Now, each of you have said some really wonderful things about the people you met and the friendships that have endured beyond the program. What were your classmates really like? If you had to, get a few words out there to describe what they were like, what would the words be? April?
Oh, sorry. For me, it's just they were genuine and kind, above and beyond good people. And I think if you want to spend 2 years in Bloomington, which is awesome, but very small and has tough winters, like you have to be a lover of people. And they really were just the best group of people I ever could have hoped to go to school with.
And my God, they volunteered to babysit. And I bet you didn't have
I know. They were amazing. Amazing.
Kristen, how would you describe your classmates?
I would say they were collaborative and creative. We had similar to Luca, really kind of culturally diverse set of people. So like 33, I think it was 33 nationalities out of the 80 plus students in the group. And so, everybody wasn't afraid to bring different perspectives and jump in if you ever needed help. Even though we had obviously some competitive portions as well, it was definitely collaborative and quite fun.
Yeah, that's great. Luca, you mentioned that sometimes, there were obvious challenges in everyone getting on board on one particular thing. But how would you generally describe your classmates and what they contributed to your MBA program?
I want to use a quality that is loyalty, because the program is objectively hard. It's not easy, so it's hard. And fortunately, our team worked really as a family. So we learn a lot from each other, and a loyal group, like like family, with the troubles and with good things. So this.
I often think of a really good MBA program as one that creates a safe space. Meaning you can be vulnerable, and you need to be, and you need to accept constructive criticism from your classmates to improve. And that needs to be done in a nurturing kind of environment where you feel safe to share some of your concerns, some of your worries, and know that they would be respected by your classmates. What about at RSM? How would you describe your classmates?
I would say unique, diverse, and extremely helpful, and like equivalent to what April said, the kindness was endless. Especially we had about 135 students, and everyone had something very individual to contribute. There's no two people that I could say were the same. So it was very humbling as a result to learn from all of them. Obviously, coming from all the different countries that they did come in from, there was something new to learn from all of them. And if, my back was ever against the wall, or if before I could even ask for help, they were always there to offer help, which was very new to me, especially coming from a lot of traditional industries where it's just like, holy crap, where did you come from? But thank heaven for you. So those were the three adjectives I'll use for them.
Yeah, that's really great. Can you describe one challenging moment, the most challenging moment you had in the MBA program, and maybe how you overcame it? Noreen, let's go with you.
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges I had was making that transition from only working for 10 years to going back to school. It is a huge shift in mindset, in your practices. Your body doesn't want to respond to going to school and to that level of work, because you're in school 9 to 5, and then you're doing schoolwork and class, trying to find some personal time, whether it's exercise. Your body just didn't mind, and body just didn't respond. But that's where I kind of go back to having that support system, creating that camaraderie with my classmates, my group mates, supporting each other through that really helped. And I think since we were all in the same boat together, yeah. We were feeding off each other. We were learning from each other. So, okay, maybe let's try this, and we can overcome this obstacle of not wanting to do schoolwork, let's say.
Yes, and this is what creates some of the deep bonding that occurs at an MBA program.
Exactly.
This is why Luca would have brought more espresso to Madrid from Rome. Luca, what was your single biggest challenge in the MBA program?
I think that the real challenge in an MBA program for me was to become the master of yourself. I don't want to be a psychologist or a philosopher, but it's very difficult to manage other people if you don't know your own limits and yourself very well. And there is a moment in the program that you are like, in my case, like Ferrari car. You know that you can push, but you have to know where is the moment to stop, to break, to find this kind of balance. This is the real challenge, not only of the program, probably of the work experience, but real in MBA, you can see this in an evident way, very evident.
Yeah, you want to go fast in a Ferrari, but you don't want to crash it.
Yeah, of course, the balance.
April, I imagine that the biggest challenge that you faced was simply being a mother and having a husband going through the program at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Where both your schedules were incredibly intense, right?
Very. So for us, certainly the logistics were the toughest challenge. We were in constant communication between one another, a lot of bartering and a lot of creativity, like, can you leave your meeting 10 minutes early so that I can get to my meeting 10 minutes late? We leaned really hard on our family. We ended up, my husband's parents live in Columbus, Ohio, and we ended up making weekend trips every weekend. We would pick up our son. I was still pregnant, but pick up our son, drive to Ohio. They would watch him for the weekend while we studied there, and we drove back. we leaned on friends in business school, and we stopped being shy about asking for help. It just, it became essential.
That's good.
So yeah.
Yeah, totally. You got to ask for help if you need it. And, you know,
Yes.
there's so many people who are willing to give it to you.
Absolutely.
Kristen, your big challenge.
Yeah, so at EDHEC, we set up into dedicated teams at the beginning of each kind of division of the year. And those teams you work with repeatedly throughout the term. And at the beginning, especially when I first started the MBA, we had, 6 people on the team from 6 different countries, from 6 different functions, from 6 different industries. So working with a team like that was really a challenge for probably like the first, 2 projects. You had to really kind of navigate different strong opinions, different skill sets, different strengths, different kind of writing styles, everything that you can imagine. So that was the biggest challenge, but I guess also then getting past that and now being so close with those same team members that I was arguing with at midnight, saying it's not acceptable to submit an assignment at midnight when it's due. You're supposed to send it the day before. But yeah.
So what's your best advice for people who are now, wading through, grinding through the application process? What words of wisdom might you dispense for these people at this moment right now? Kristen, what would you say?
I'd say remember that it's your opportunity to interview the school as well. Oftentimes when you're sitting in the seat and you're getting the interview and you're kind of answering all these questions about yourself, you start to forget that it's a two-way process. You need to pick the school that's right for you as well. So don't forget that, and kind of make sure to take the time and prepare to ask the right questions.
Terrific advice. That really is, because it's very easy to feel, oh my God, woe is me. The application is so tough to get in, and then the admission rates are so low. But no, hey, it is a two-way process, and it's really important to remember that, and to be demanding and discerning in the process as well. Nermeen?
Mine is be curious. Kind of do your research, go with your gut feeling. See what school resonates with you, because some school, may be great on paper, but not be really great for you based on your circumstance and what your goals are. So do your research, talk to the alumni, be curious, ask the right questions. And if something feels off, ask yourself why it feels off, and maybe look at another school that may feel less off or not off at all.
Yeah, great advice. April?
I would just say, no, to thine own self be true. Like, take risks, know who you are, know what you want, and do what you want. It's your money. It's a huge investment. I took a ton of risks. Everyone thought I was crazy, and 5 years out, I'm super happy.
I like that. Luca?
Yes, be yourself and be ready for the change. Prepare yourself to this great change. And there is a quote of also John Paul II that is very strong in this case, that is, the future starts today, not tomorrow. So don't lose time, and don't lose time. Very important things, and don't think too much.
And that's a good point to be made today in the midst of this pandemic, when a lot of people have kind of stalled their life and they're just killing time waiting for this to end. You got to seize the day. You got to live it. You got to go forward. You got to move, because when the pandemic ends, you want to be in a place where you can realize your dreams and your true promise. So, hey, it's been such a joy and a pleasure to meet all of you and to spend this hour with you. I wish you the best of luck in your professional careers and in your personal life with the friends that you met at business school. It's been a real pleasure for me to spend a little time with you. April, Luca, Kristen, Nermeen, thank you so much for spending that time.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, everyone, as well.
Stay safe.
Thank you.